Let's take a look at how to make three-dimensional text inside of Photoshop CS5 Extended. Now I've got some text out here. I want to show you guys the original text, and I want to turn it into something like this. What's your sign? Isn't that awesome? Now, I'm not going to show you guys how to map and do all these different things with what are called textures and stuff like that right now. We won't do that in this video. I just want to get it to three-dimensional text and show you how to do that. So let me go over to a starting point. You can do three-dimensional 3D in Photoshop Extended using a lot of different things. Selections, masks, type layers, things like that. I'm going to use a type layer, text layer that I created. It's just text that I typed in, and make sure you put a color on it that's going to make sense, something you want to have. Like I'll say maybe like an orangey yellow or something like that. I'll put that on there. Awesome. Now, make a copy of that type layer. So with the type layer selected over in the Layers panel, hit Control-J or Command-J on Mac, make a copy, and turn off the original layer, the eye. That way, it's going to rasterize it when you do this. So either come under the 3D menu and come to Repousse, Text Layer, or you can open up the 3D panel by going to Window 3D and choose 3D Repousse Object, and I'm not even saying that right, I'm sure, Create. Either way will work. It's going to tell you that that text layer is going to be rasterized, so I'll click Yes. It'll go through and it'll convert it to a three-dimensional object. It'll allow you to go in and do things like apply, all sorts of different features to it. You'll see in a second. It'll open up the dialog box here. There we go. Now, what's cool about this is once this Repousse dialog box is open, you can go out and you'll notice this little guy right here. We can go out and start to adjust or move the text to see what it looks like. So we can try different things out here. Now, if you want to mess with this and try different views and things like that, you can just drag around. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You'll notice that you've got a lot of other tools up here you can work with, like rolling, you've got panning, sliding, scaling, and then return to initial mesh. That's a good one right there, the home. If I click on that, it'll kind of put it back where it was. Now, I love this one right here, this scaling. Click on that. What you can do is you can click and drag up or down, and it just makes it bigger or smaller. It's rasterized, so we can kind of change it. If you hold down the Shift key and you drag up and down, you can change what's called the depth. You can really pop it out or bring it in. A lot of different things. If you hold down the Shift key and drag right or left, you can squish it horizontally. If you hold down the Alt on Windows, Option on Mac, you'll see a little Z icon show up. And you drag up and down, you can squish it vertically. There we go. All right, now, we have a lot of different presets we can assign to this. You can do like flat, you can bevel it, like add beveling to it. And just remember, anytime you work in this dialog box, if you click on anything or change a value, it's going to take a second or two for it to adjust out here. So you guys can see, let me try one that actually looks decent. I'll try like this balloon deal. That'll go out and change the shape of the text, put a little beveling on it, so it'll kind of inflate it, as it were. All right, now I'm going to go to this one right here, which is the rotate, and I'll rotate it so you can see this. There you go. You can kind of see that it's kind of inflated on the front edge there. Let me drag it around. You'll see it's not inflated on the back side. Okay, now a lot of you are probably like, who cares? But there's a lot of things we can do. We can create our own presets, a lot of different things in here, a lot of different presets you can mess with. Down here, you'll see extrude. This is the depth, how deep it is. That's what happened when I changed the scale by holding the Shift key down. If you want, you can go depth and go kind of small, like 0.3 or something like that. Now, it's going to take a few seconds here. You can go much bigger. I could say like 3, 10, whatever I want, and just change the depth. You do whatever you want to do. All right, so I'll do like 0.5. Scaling, this is kind of cool. You can see that if you put a depth on it, the front is 1. That's the scale of the front. If you look right here where it says scale, this is the scale of the back side. So I can double it or make it bigger. So I'll go like 1.4. And if you look, it's going to go from smaller to bigger. It's kind of weird looking. There you go. Now if I twist that, and by the way, if you drag using this rotate, you can hold down the Shift key to constrain it. You see what it's doing here? It's 1.4 times the size. So there's a lot of things you can try to do there. I'll just put it back to 1. We can twist the backside. So as it adds depth to it, you can take the backside and twist it. Now, I'm going to put in like maybe, 1, 2. You're going to have to go kind of, if I remember on this, you're going to have to go kind of big on this. So I go like 10. Try 15. You can see trying to twist the backside. So whatever you want to do. All right, I'll put it back at 0. We can also scale textures. A lot of things we can do with the faces on this, like coloring it and things like that. Bending, angles, different things. We'll get to that in another video. But here's the inflate part. If you want, you can inflate the front, the back, or the front and the back. So you can, do both sides if you want to. You can also change the strength, how much it inflates. So I'll put it to, like, let's say 1. There we go. Now you got to be careful because it's going to look really weird. Yeah, it's looking pretty crappy. So I'll bring that back a little bit. I'll do like 0.3. Now we have materials we can assign as well. You've got materials on all the different faces. So we've got like a front inflate, a front bevel, side, which is the side out here on the left, the right, all these different sides. And then we've got the bevel 2 or the back, which is on the back side here. Okay, so what you can do is you can add different materials to it. Now, if you look right here, you'll see it says all. If you want to assign a material to all sides or all, I guess you could say edges, we can do it to all. If I want to just do it to, let's say, like the front or the sides, I'll go to sides here. Click on the arrow, you'll see the different materials we can assign. We've got like bricks, and you can assign your own material if you want to. If you come to the outside arrow here, you can go to new material and make your own. You can load material, all sorts of different things. I'm going to try, let's say like brick. I don't know, I'll do brick. That's awesome. Look at that. You can do it to any of the sides out here. Now, the bevel, if you take a look, you can adjust the bevel as well. The height and width, if you want to, you can go to front, back, front and back, try different things. Change the height, change the contour if you want to, try different things that way. It just gives you different ways to look at it. We can also go to lights. If you want to try different lighting, like blue, CAD optimized, there's a lot of different things, like dawn, red, all sorts of different things you can try here. Whatever you think looks good. I'm going to go to default lights again. You can change the view. Now be careful of that because it's going to make it bigger and smaller. So if I go to, let's say, a front view, sometimes if you look, it'll make it bigger, it'll move it, etc. And then you've got to go back to your tools, like let's say your pan tool or something like that, and be able to move it, resize it, scale it, etc. Render settings, these are important. Render settings and mesh quality. Render settings allow you guys to do some really cool things. If you want to make this look like, I don't know, what's called a wireframe, there's some kind of neat things you can do here. This is just a look or an appearance. I'll put it back to default. Mesh quality. This is important as well. If you want, you can make the mesh best, better, or draft quality. This can slow things down quite a bit, but can make it look much better. Okay, so it depends on what you're doing and how fast your machine is. We can always change this up a little bit later on. We can come back in here towards the end of the process if you want to, and I'll show you that in another video. So we've got our presets, we've got our materials, we've got different things we can do to change it up. You also have what are called internal constraints. Now this is kind of weird. Let me rotate this a little bit so we can see it. And you'll see that, let's say I've got this like the center of the O right here. The internal constraints, we can go in and do things like adjust, shift, pan, rotate, roll. Let me go to rotate, the rotate tool here. If you hover over, you'll see it's kind of hard to tell here, but it highlights the things that you're going to adjust, like the little O and the A here. If I click and drag, now your machine's got to be able to handle this, you guys. And me recording is not doing such a hot job. But it may take a second here. But I can actually rotate. I can roll. There we go. There's tons of stuff you guys can do. You can even grab this figure up here if you want to, this guy right here, and do it. The one I love is this one right here. I can scale the center point. So I can click and drag the scale. Once again, it's going to take forever here, you guys. Scale up, scale down. You'll see it gets bigger, gets smaller. There we go. It's going to get smaller, whatever. Anyway, smaller, bigger, whatever. Okay, so I'll let go, and there we go. Now, another great thing we can do is if you screw things up, if you mess it up, you can always go back to home by clicking home if you're trying some things out. There's a lot of internal constraints you guys can work with, a lot of cool things we can do. I'll actually work with those in another video, but there we go. We've got our text in 3D, 3 dimensions. Don't forget, you can always come back in here, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. If I click OK, it's going to apply it. It's going to do it. It's going to take a couple seconds here to kind of render it and make it happen. If you notice over here in the Layers panel, you'll see it actually turns it into a 3D layer with all the different textures, bump maps, things like that to get it to look the way it does. Now, you'll notice over here, I got a little redraw problem. That's fine. It'll take a second here. Once it's done, there we go. Notice how it draws it a little bit better, okay? Once you're kind of in mesh quality, in this horrible mesh quality. If you want to adjust it while you're out here, you guys can use the tools over here in the Tools panel. You can also open up the 3D panel and adjust the tools here, use the tools here to adjust. So I can click and drag to kind of roll or rotate. There we go. Sometimes it'll take a second to redraw it. There we go. Looks a little better. Now you'll notice, like I said, over in the layers panel, you can turn on and off the different things you've got here. Like let's say I've got my brick pattern. I've got my bump map for my brick. That basically makes it lighter and darker so it looks like it's bumpy. So you guys can turn on and off a lot of this stuff, which is kind of neat. So I can just make it a solid color if I want to. You'll see on the front here, I can also turn off that yellowish color I've got in the front. We also have the 3D panel allows you guys to go in and do tons of stuff. I will show this stuff in a separate video, but just real quick, if you ever want to go back into that Repousse dialog box, you click on the layer, the 3D layer, you come back up here, you can see filter by meshes right here, this little button, and you can see down here we have the R for the Repousse dialog box. So I can click on that. It'll allow me to open up the edit with Repousse, the dialog box, take a look at it, do what I want to do, change it, click OK, and I'm basically done. Now this takes a little bit of time depending on the speed of your machine, you guys. But if you got Photoshop Extended, you probably have a decent machine, I would hope anyway. All right, it's going to take forever to open this dialog box. There we go. All right, I'll click cancel, which I should have never clicked in the first place, but anyway. So there we go. That's how to make three-dimensional text using Repousse and just some text you guys type in. I will be doing some other videos on how to do things like add shadowing, change the bump maps, the diffuse, the patterns, the different things we overlay, how to actually paint on it, and how to do things like duplicate, how to go in and take like, I don't know, spot healing brush or the healing brush and able to paint with parts of another picture onto your text.